The stagecoach rattled down the dusty trail toward Willow Creek, a frontier town barely standing against the wind and grit of the plains. Inside, a young woman sat rigid, her gloved hands clutched tight around a small carpet bag. Her name was Clara Whitmore, and she was on her way to meet a man she had never seen, a man she had promised to marry. Outside, the landscape was endless. Golden dust, distant buttes, the silhouettes of cattle and riders. It was beautiful, wild, and terrifying all at once. Clara's blue eyes trembled every time the horses snorted or the wheels hit a rut. She wasn't just nervous. She was scared. Scared of what she'd done. Scared of what waited for her. When the coach finally groaned to a stop before the post office, Clara stepped down, her boots landing in the dirt. Men paused from their work, cowhands, merchants, a few gamblers, staring at her like she was a rare bird dropped from the heavens. She pulled her shawl tighter, heart racing. Then she saw him, a tall cowboy leaned against a hitching post, hat tipped low, a slow smile tugging at his lips. His name was Cole Maddox, owner of the Circle M Ranch, a man known for his fists in a fight and his fairness in a deal. His shirt was half open at the collar, dust streaked across his shoulders. His eyes were deep brown, steady and calm like a quiet river, but sharp too, like he missed nothing. Clara swallowed hard. This was the man she'd written letters to for 6 months. This was her husband-to-be. Cole took a few steps forward, boots crunching the dirt. "You must be Miss Whitmore," he said, voice a deep rumble. "Yes, sir," she stammered. He chuckled softly. "Darlin, I don't bite, unless a lady asks me to." The men nearby snickered. Clara blushed scarlet, but Cole gave them a look that shut them up fast. Then he tipped his hat. "Welcome to Willow Creek. Let's get you settled before the sun drops." The ride to the ranch, the journey to Circle M was quiet, the wagon rolling slow over the dusty road. Clara sat beside him, her bag clutched tight in her lap. Cole kept his eyes ahead, hands steady on the reins. "You're quieter than your letters," he said finally. Clara gave a small smile. "Letters are easier. Paper doesn't stare back." That made him laugh, a deep, warm sound that eased something tight in her chest. After a while, he glanced at her again. "You eat?" She shook her head. "Got some jerky in the back," he said. "Ain't fine dining, but it'll keep you upright." She hesitated, then reached for the strip of dried beef. Their fingers brushed for a second. Her pulse jumped. Cole noticed. His jaw flexed, but he said nothing. When the ranch came into view, Clara's breath caught. The Circle M Ranch sprawled across the valley. Wooden fences, grazing cattle, a big barn painted red, smoke rising from the cookhouse. It wasn't grand, but it felt alive. Cole helped her down from the wagon. "Ain't much, but it's home," he said. For a moment, Clara thought she saw softness in his eyes, something lonely, hidden deep. The house inside the main house, everything smelled of pine and smoke. A single rifle hung above the fireplace. Boots lined the wall. It was a man's world, rough, orderly, and silent. Cole carried her bag upstairs to a small room with a window overlooking the corral. "You can stay here," he said. "We'll figure the rest once you're settled." Clara nodded, fingers trembling. "Thank you." He lingered in the doorway, hat in hand. "You nervous about this whole arrangement?" Her voice barely came out. "I don't know what to expect." He smiled faintly. "Neither do I, darling. But we'll manage." Then he tipped his hat again and walked away. Boots echoing down the stairs. The past she carried that night. Clara unpacked her few belongings, a worn Bible, 2 dresses, a silver locket. Inside the locket was a picture of a little boy, her brother. She whispered his name. Eli. He died 2 winters ago back in Kansas when the fever swept through town. Her parents followed soon after. Alone and desperate, Clara had answered Cole's ad for a mail-order bride. She needed safety. A home, but love? She didn't dare hope for that. Downstairs, Cole sat by the fire, whiskey glass in hand. His foreman, Jeb Carter, a grizzled man with a missing finger, spoke low. "She's pretty, boss. Looks like she's seen hard times." Cole nodded. "Yeah, something in her eyes. Like she's run from a ghost." Jeb shrugged. "You sure you want a wife? You could hire a cook instead." Cole stared into the flames. "I don't want to cook, Jeb. I want peace. Maybe she'll bring some." The stranger at the barn. The next morning, Clara woke early, determined to prove herself. She found the kitchen and began making biscuits, her mother's recipe. The smell drew Cole from outside. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes amused. "Darlin, if you keep that up, I might start believing you're heaven sent." Clara blushed, laughing softly. "Just biscuits, Mr. Maddox." "Cole," he corrected. "If we're gonna be married, you best call me by my name." Before she could answer, the sound of hooves thundered outside. Cole turned sharp, hand going to his revolver. A rider galloped in, dust flying, horse lathered with sweat. It was Vince Hale, a local rancher with a reputation for trouble. "Cole," he shouted, swinging down. "You got my cattle again?" Cole's jaw tightened. "You accusing me, Vince?" "I ain't asking, I'm telling." "Two of my steers gone, and your boy's been riding close to my fence." Clara stood frozen in the doorway as the two men faced off, hands near their holsters. Then Cole spoke quietly. "You got 10 seconds to get off my land, Hale, before I forget we're neighbors." Vince spat in the dirt. "You think your new bride makes you civil, Maddox?" "She don't know who she married." Cole's eyes went dark. "She will." Vince rode off, dust rising behind him. Clara's voice was soft. "Do you always solve things like that?" Cole holstered his gun. "Only when folks forget their manners." The storm and the truth. That evening, a storm rolled in, rain slashing against the windows, thunder shaking the walls. Clara sat by the fire trying to read, but the thunder made her flinch every time, Cole noticed. He sat beside her quietly. "You afraid of storms?" She tried to smile. "Just reminds me of bad nights." He leaned forward, voice low. "What kind of bad nights, Clara?" She swallowed hard. "After my family died, I worked for a man in Kansas City. He wasn't kind. When I refused to be what he wanted, he locked me out in a storm. I nearly froze." Cole's hand clenched around his glass. "If that man were here, I'd—" He stopped himself, eyes softening. "You're safe now. Ain't no one gonna hurt you here." Clara met his gaze. For the first time since she'd stepped off that stagecoach, she believed him. Outside, lightning split the sky. But for once, she didn't flinch. The first smile by the third day. The ranch felt less like a cage and more like a beginning. Clara helped feed the hens, mended shirts, and even rode out with Cole to check fences. She laughed when her bonnet nearly flew off in the wind. Cole grinned. "There's that smile I've been waiting on," she blushed. "Didn't know I owed you one." "Guess you don't. But I'll take it anyway." They rode side by side, the prairie stretching wide around them, but far off. On the ridge above, Vince Hale watched through narrowed eyes. The next morning, sunlight poured over the Circle M ranch. The storm had scrubbed the air clean, and the smell of wet sage rolled across the hills. Clara stood on the porch, her shawl drawn tight, watching Cole saddle his horse. He looked up and caught her staring. "You're up early." "I couldn't sleep. Bad dreams?" She nodded. Cole swung into the saddle. "Dreams fade quicker when you've got work to do." "Come with me. Help Jeb with the calves." Clara hesitated, then followed. Out in the open fields, the morning felt wide and new. She helped tag the calves, her skirts gathering dust, laughter breaking free when one of the little ones nuzzled her hand. Cole watched from the fence, a quiet smile forming. The shy woman from the stagecoach was changing, stronger now, sunlight in her eyes. A visit to town. A week later, Cole hitched the wagon. "Need supplies. You're coming with me." Willow Creek bustled under the noon sun, horses, wagons, chatter. Clara sat close beside him, feeling the curious glances of townsfolk. It wasn't unkind curiosity, but it made her cheeks burn. They stopped at the general store. Mrs. Hart, the plump owner, smiled warmly. "So this is the new Mrs. Maddox. You've got your hands full, dear. This one never stops working." Clara blushed. "He's been kind," Cole smirked. "That so? You hear that, folks?" "Someone thinks I'm kind." Laughter rippled through the room, and Clara found herself laughing too. But outside, by the hitching post, Vince Hale waited. "Well, if it ain't the lucky bride," he drawled. "Cole Maddox must be desperate to send for a girl all the way from Kansas." Clara stiffened. Cole stepped forward, voice low and hard. "You got something to say, Hale. Say it and ride on." Vince tipped his hat mockingly. "Just reminding you, Maddox. Some of us remember what happened out near Dry Creek. You may fool her, but I know what kind of man you are." Cole's jaw tightened. For a second, Clara thought he'd hit him, but instead he turned away. "Come on, Clara," he said. They rode home in silence, a secret revealed. That night, Clara couldn't keep quiet. "Cole, what did he mean? What happened at Dry Creek?" He poured himself a drink before answering. 2 years back, rustlers tried stealing my herd. I caught 'em. One was just a boy, Vince's brother. I gave him a chance to drop his gun. He didn't. He stared into the fire. I killed him, Clara. Been paying for it ever since. She stepped closer. You defended your land. That's not the same as murder. Try telling that to a man who lost his brother. She hesitated, then took the glass from his hand and set it down. You're not the only one running from ghosts, Cole. He looked at her, really looked, and something broke open between them. The fire in the night. 3 nights later, the smell of smoke woke them. Cole bolted upright. The barn! They ran outside. The sky glowed orange. Flames clawed at the roof. Cole shouted for Jeb, grabbed a bucket, and sprinted toward the blaze. Clara followed without thinking. Cole, the horses! Stay back, he yelled. But she didn't. She threw her shawl over her face and ran inside the smoke. She could hear the animals panicking, hooves striking wood. She found a young mare trapped behind a beam. Her heart pounded as she yanked at it, coughing hard. Then a strong arm grabbed her waist, Cole pulling her free just as the roof groaned. They stumbled out together, both covered in soot. The barn collapsed behind them. Cole cupped her face, voice trembling. You could have died. So could you. Darlin! He pulled her close, and for the first time, she didn't shy away. The confession later, under the stars, Clara sat wrapped in a blanket as Cole checked the damage. Who'd do this? She whispered. Cole's voice was grim. Hale's brand was carved on one of the fences. He's trying to drive me off. Clara's hands tightened. Then we fight. Cole turned, surprised. We? She met his eyes. I came here for safety, but I found something worth standing for. You? He froze, then smiled softly. You're something else, Clara Whitmore. Clara Maddox, she corrected. He laughed low, the sound rough and tender. Guess I better start acting like a husband then. The showdown the next morning, Cole saddled his horse. I'm ending this. Clara grabbed his arm. Don't. You'll only give him what he wants. I ain't letting him burn another thing I love. The words hung between them. Then he rode out. At the Hale ranch, Vince waited by the corral, a rifle slung over his shoulder. You came, Vince said. I came to end it. They faced each other under the blazing sun. I didn't mean for your brother to die, Cole said. But you keep pushing me, and more blood'll spill, Vince sneered. You think saying sorry brings him back? He lifted the rifle. A gunshot cracked, dust flew. Cole dove behind a trough, drew his revolver, fired once. The bullet clipped Vince's hat clean off. Enough! Cole shouted. This ain't justice, it's vengeance. Vince hesitated, then lowered the rifle. His voice broke. You took everything from me. Cole shook his head. No, the land took it. The hunger, the hate. Don't let it take what's left. Vince's shoulders sagged. After a long silence, he dropped the gun. Get off my land, Maddox. Cole nodded. Gladly. The promise. When Cole rode back into the yard, Clara ran to him. You're hurt. He smiled through a split lip. Ain't nothing that can't be fixed with your cooking. She threw her arms around him. Don't you ever scare me like that again? Can't promise that. He whispered against her hair. But I can promise I'll always come back. They stood like that as the sun sank over the prairie, the wind carrying the scent of rain and wildflowers. A home rebuilt weeks passed. The barn was rebuilt, stronger than before. Vince kept his distance. The town stopped whispering. Every evening, Clara and Cole sat on the porch watching the horizon turn gold. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they didn't need to. One night, she rested her head on his shoulder. Do you ever think about the life you wanted before all this? He chuckled. Didn't know what I wanted till you stepped off that stagecoach. She smiled. I was so afraid that day. I know, he said. But fear don't last long when love takes its place. He kissed her then, slow, certain, with the patience of a man who'd waited his whole life to mean it. Epilogue. 2 years later, the circle. M thrived again. Calvas filled the pastures and laughter filled the house. Clara taught the ranch hands' children their letters under the cottonwood tree. Cole rode in from the fields, dust on his hat and a grin on his face. He lifted her into his arms, spinning her once before setting her down. Mrs. Maddox, he said softly, looks like the land finally gave me something worth keeping. "And what's that?" she teased. He touched her cheek. "You." The wind swept through the valley, carrying the echo of their laughter. The fear that once lived in Clara's eyes was gone, replaced by something fierce and steady. Love.